On the morning of May 29th, 1453, one of the most important cities in the world was breaking. For more than 1,000 years, Constantinople had stood between Europe and Asia. Armies had surrounded it, empires had threatened it. Invaders had looked up at its walls and failed. But this time was different. Outside the city stood Sultan Mehmed II, a young Ottoman ruler with an army, a navy, and weapons powerful enough to make ancient stone defenses feel vulnerable. Inside the walls stood Emperor Constantine XI, defending the last capital of the Roman world. When the city fell, it was not just the end of a siege, it was the end of an empire, and one of history's greatest turning points. To understand why Constantinople mattered, look at a map. The city sat on a narrow point of land beside the Bosporus, the waterway between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean world. Whoever controlled Constantinople could influence trade, movement, diplomacy, and military power between Europe and Asia. But the city was more than a strategic location. It was a symbol. Founded by the Roman Emperor Constantine in the 4th century, Constantinople became the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, later called the Byzantine Empire by historians. After the western half of the Roman Empire collapsed, this Eastern Empire survived. Its people did not think of themselves as a museum piece. They thought of themselves as Romans. For centuries, Constantinople was one of the richest and most defended cities in the world. Its churches, markets, palaces, libraries, and walls made it feel almost permanent. And the walls mattered most. The Theodosian walls were not just a barrier. They were a system: outer defenses, inner walls, towers, and a wide approach that made a direct land attack brutally difficult. Again and again, enemies came. Again and again, Constantinople survived. That reputation became part of its power. This is where the story often becomes too simple. People sometimes say Constantinople fell because of cannons. That is only partly true. The cannons mattered. They hammered the walls for weeks. They forced the defenders to repair damage again and again. They changed the rhythm of the siege, but technology did not win by itself. Mehmed also needed logistics, discipline, manpower, naval pressure, political will, and timing. The cannons did not replace strategy. They made strategy more dangerous. The siege began in early April 1453. From the land side, Ottoman forces pressed against the Theodosian walls. From the water, the city watched for danger in the Bosporus and the Golden Horn, the inlet that formed Constantinople's great natural harbor. The defenders used a massive chain across the Golden Horn to block enemy ships from entering. For a time, it worked. But Mehmed found another way. In one of the most famous moves of the siege, Ottoman ships were hauled overland and launched into the Golden Horn, bypassing the chain. Whether seen as engineering, theater, or psychological warfare, the effect was real. The defenders now had to worry about another side of the city. Inside Constantinople, pressure grew. Walls had to be repaired. Supplies had to be guarded. Every breach had to be answered. Every rumor mattered. And outside the city, the bombardment continued. The old defensive logic of Constantinople was being tested by a new kind of warfare. Stone walls could still resist, but they could no longer feel eternal. What makes this story powerful is not just the weapons. It is the contrast. On one side was a young sultan trying to turn Ottoman ambition into world historical victory. On the other side was an emperor defending a city that carried the memory of Rome. Constantine XI could not match Mehmed's resources, but he could decide to stay. The defenders knew help from the West might not arrive in time. Christian Europe was divided, distracted, and slow to respond. Some aid came, especially from Italian fighters and sailors, but not enough to change the balance. So Constantinople fought with what it had: There were professional soldiers, volunteers, sailors, monks, civilians, and foreign commanders trying to hold together a defense stretched across miles of walls and shoreline. The city was not defending only buildings, it was defending identity. For the Byzantines, Constantinople was the city of Constantine, the city of Hagia Sophia, the city that connected them to Rome and to a Christian imperial past. For Mehmed, taking it would do more than remove an obstacle. It would give the Ottoman Empire a capital worthy of its ambitions. That is why the siege mattered before it was even over. Both sides understood that the city was a prize made of stone, faith, memory, and power. By late May, the city was exhausted. The walls had been damaged and repaired again and again. The defenders were tired. The Ottomans had paid a heavy price, but they still had the numbers and momentum. The final assault came on May 29, 1453. Ottoman attacks struck the walls in waves. The defenders pushed back where they could. But at some point, the balance broke. The walls were breached. Ottoman troops entered the city. Emperor Constantine XI disappeared into the fighting and died during the fall, though the exact details of his final moments remain uncertain. What is certain is what his death represented. The Byzantine Empire was over. The eastern continuation of the Roman Empire, a state with roots reaching back to the ancient world, had reached its final day. Constantinople had survived Persians, Arabs, Bulgars, Rus, Crusaders, civil wars, and centuries of pressure. But in 1453, it could not survive the combination of Ottoman power, political isolation, and gunpowder siege warfare. The city fell, and the world around it shifted. The fall of Constantinople did not change everything overnight. History rarely works that cleanly. But it became a powerful turning point because several major changes met in one event. First, it marked the end of the Byzantine Empire. The last political continuation of the Roman imperial world was gone. Second, it transformed Ottoman power. Constantinople became the center of an expanding empire, a capital linking Europe, Asia, and the Eastern Mediterranean. Third, it showed that the age of old walls was changing. Fortifications still mattered, but gunpowder artillery was forcing rulers, engineers, and soldiers to rethink war. Fourth, it affected trade and imagination. The Ottoman position around key eastern routes helped increase European pressure to search for alternatives, including routes by sea. It was not the only cause of exploration, but it became part of the larger story. And finally, it became a symbol. To some, 1453 marked the end of the Middle Ages. To others, it was the rise of a new Ottoman age. To many, it was the moment an ancient city changed owners, meanings, and futures. Constantinople did not fall because one wall cracked or one cannon fired. It fell because an old world met a new one at the edge of a city. The defenders carried the memory of Rome. The attackers carried the force of a rising empire. And when the walls finally broke, the map of history changed with them.